we will not.
Oh, I have a limited time. It's time.
Oh, we are? Oh, early. Okay. So, please tell us about your personal prayer life. Do you think it is important for the bishop to encourage and support both clergy and laity to cultivate their prayer lives? And if so, how would you do that?
Well, I'm going to answer the second part of this question first. I think that the way the bishop encourages self-care and all of that stuff is by modeling it, by simply doing it. I have a spiritual director who I say is the reincarnation of Yoda. Because he will say to me, stressed you are, speak you must. And then proceeds, to ask me about my prayer life, about am I studying scripture, am I taking my day off? And anytime that I say no to those, he gets on my case about it. And so being able to have that time of Sabbath, that time away for recreation and reconnection with God, who is our source, has become really important to me. The members of my parish know that they cannot call me on a Friday. Friday is my Sabbath. And so anytime that they call me, they know that I'm not going to answer the phone because it is my time away, my time to be in reconnection with God. Throughout our gospel, Jesus is always going off to a quiet place and resting. Before that he was betrayed, he was in the Garden of Gethsemane in a quiet place, kind of recreating and reconnecting. And I think that we as a clergy and the laity are called to do the same thing. I really do think that it's not just the clergy who are called to take that important Sabbath, that sacred Sabbath time. I think the laity are called to do it as well. Because when we reconnect to that source, it means that we are energized to go back out into the world to minister in Jesus' name. Because if we don't, that's usually when we get into trouble, isn't it? That's when we find burnout. That's usually when we find conflict starting. Because we are not taking time to reconnect with Jesus. As the old hymn goes, spend a little time with Jesus. And so, to be able to model for the clergy and the laity that the bishop does take time for spiritual care, takes Sabbath, spends time in retreat, becomes really, really important. And it's something that I do right now. My husband can tell you that my prayer life is usually happening when they are still asleep, because I'm the first person up in the morning. And I spend my time, before everybody gets up, listening. The house is quiet. I'm doing the dishes or making breakfast. And I'm listening because the last thing that I need to do is bombard God with the things that I want. My prayer life a lot of the time is about being open and listening to what God wants from me.
So our current policy in the diocese is full inclusion of our LGBT members, including ordination and clergy officiating at same-gender marriages if they wish to do so. What is your position on these issues? What would your directives to the diocese be on this issue?
Absolutely not. You cannot, never, know it now. Yes? What do you think, husband? All I can say is yes. I think that we would continue the current policy. One of the things, I mentioned this last night, one of the things that was really important to my husband and I was that the bishop took time out of his calendar day to come do our wedding. He literally rearranged his calendar to come and do our wedding and spend time at our reception. And I can tell you that my 11-year-old self could never have seen that. I never thought I would see the day where a black, gay kid from the Caribbean would A, get married in the church, and B, have the bishop be the officiant. I never thought I would see that. So that meant the world to me. And I know that there are people who disagree. I know there are people who may not be at that place just yet. And so I grew up in a household where my grandmother would say to us often, you can disagree without being disagreeable. And so for those people who would disagree on same-sex marriage, my response would be, that is okay. We can disagree. You don't have to be at the same place that I am. But we still need to be in relationship with each other. It means that we still have the work of following Jesus to do, and this is an issue that we may not agree on, but we still have a good news to go tell other people. We still have to go out there and minister to Jesus in Jesus' name, and regardless of whether we agree fundamentally on the theology of whether same-sex marriages should happen or be ordained or whatnot, we are still called to follow Jesus first. And so that we can find ways to do that is life-giving to all of us. So, for me, I always go back to that grandmother's adage. Disagree, but don't be disagreeable. Because, again, my husband and I may be a challenge to some people, but it might be life-giving to others. And ultimately, that's what we are called to do in following Jesus, to bring new life to others.
So the last General Convention encouraged the trial and use of alternative liturgies. Our diocese has tended to stick with liturgies from the Book of Common Prayer and Enriching our worship, with a few alternative additions for certain seasons. What is your opinion on the use of alternative liturgies within a diocese? Do you see liturgical renewal as important in the life of our diocese? And what would your directions be regarding alternatives?
Okay. So again, I'm going to answer the second part of the question first. What would your directions regarding alternatives? I think I would give a wide latitude in being able to use different liturgies from across the Anglican Communion and other places, because what was approved by General Convention, enriching our worship in the Book of Common Prayer, may not speak to every context that we might find ourselves in. I'm on the task force for prayer book and liturgical renewal, which means that I'm one of the people who's tasked with figuring out how we're going to revise the prayer book and what that's going to look like. And here's one of the things that we are finding. There's so many cultures across this church of ours that some parts of our liturgy just do not speak to. And so I think part of it is that we need to find a new language, a new liturgy language that allows a wider depth and breadth of liturgical practices. And so I'm fortunate enough right now to serve in a diocese where the bishop gives a pretty wide latitude. The bishop's caveat is, if you're doing something that's in the wider Anglican Communion, number one, let me know. And number two, if you're doing something that is a little bit out there that's different, let me know, and also let me know what feedback you get. Because the thing about liturgy is not about, stirring our heads. Liturgy is about stirring our hearts. Liturgy is about helping others to experience that connection with Jesus, where their hearts are strangely warmed, according to John Wesley. And so I'm a liturgist, and so I write lots of liturgies and all that stuff. And so for me, liturgy is supposed to energize us and create and send us out into the world so that we can go and minister to Jesus. That we can see Jesus present. And so if our liturgy is not life-giving and life-affirming and pointing us towards resurrection, then our liturgy is dead. And it needs resurrection. And so for me, having a wider latitude, a place where we can pull from a deeper well, especially when it comes to liturgical texts and language about God and cultural experiences about God, becomes really important. Because what will speak to me as somebody from the Caribbean may not speak to you from someone who's from San Luis Obispo, or even from my husband who's originally from Mexico. And so realizing that there needs to be a wide latitude in how we address and connect to God.
So how would you support, empower, and care for ECR's vocational deacons and their varied ministries?
So I have the pleasure of serving with a sometimes scary deacon in my parish. Edit that part out, in case she watches this. And I'll tell you about an incident where someone came up to her one Sunday when she first got there and said, "So, were you just not good enough to be a priest?" And I had to kind of slip in between the two of them and kind of like push them apart. But what it said to me is that people did not understand what a vocational deacon is and what a vocational deacon does. And I think that the bishop has a unique responsibility and a role to lift up the work of deacons. For me, deacons do the work of straddling the line between the outside of the church and the inside of the church. They are the ones who stand at the end of service and says to us, "Go. Go out into the world to love and serve the Lord." I wish sometimes they would say, "Go. You don't have to stay, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Go out into the world and find Jesus and minister to him, and then bring that ministry back into the church." One of the things that happens in my diocese at least once or twice a year is that the bishop has a deacon's quiet day. The point of a deacon's quiet day is to gather all the deacons for fellowship, for worship, for a time for them to connect with each other. And our deacons have found that that is exceptionally life-giving because they are in a group of their peers. And so for me, that would be something that I could see modeling here in this diocese, where the deacons can get together and help each other. The other thing that I love about a deacon is that a deacon always reminds us that we are called first to be servants. In the early church, the only two orders of ministry was the bishop and the deacon. We priests only came about because the bishop couldn't be in every church every Sunday. And so the deacon was supposed to remind us that we are servants, and the bishop reminded us of our authority. And so a deacon going out into the world to remind us that we are called first to service, to be that symbol, to keep telling us, go out into the world, go and do something, go and find Jesus, go and serve Jesus, go and then come back with your ministry, becomes really, really important. Because that's what they do. They remind us that Jesus is out there in the world waiting for us to come and minister, and that we should get on with the business of going out there and doing it.
Is this your flask?
Yes. Take this.
So, this is question number 5. What do you believe have been your major accomplishments in life and in leadership in the church? And what skills and abilities have most helped you in these accomplishments?
Well, I would say one of my most major accomplishments in life is being here. What I mean by that, I don't mean just being here in this process, but being here on this earth as a beloved child of God, and knowing that I'm a beloved child of God. Because I know that there's lots of folks out there who don't have that experience. I mean, I have lived in this skin for all of my life, and so I feel comfortable in it. And so for me, that is an accomplishment. Just simply being able to dress up and show up, for me, is a life accomplishment. Professionally, I would say that one of my biggest accomplishments that would be the parish that I'm serving right now. My parish, we have together done some things that if you had told us 5 or 10 years ago that we would have done these things, nobody would believe you. We have managed to take a 135-year-old building, gut the building, rebuild the building to the tune of about $2.2 million, and almost double the size of the congregation. And I can safely say that I did not do that by myself. We did it together. We had lots of Bible study. We had lots of time to pray. We had lots of dreaming. We had lots of experimentation. And we had lots of opportunities where we said, Jesus, this is in your hands and we can do nothing more. And so for me, that was my accomplishment, that we were able to do all of that together. And that now we are at a place where we are being innovative and creative in how we reach out to our community. That we are no longer just writing a check and sending it off. That we're going out and actually looking in the eyes of Jesus and those people that we interact with and doing real work with them. One of the fun summer projects that we get to do every year in my parish is called Blessing Bag. We have a blessing bag ministry, but we also have a fill a bag, feed a family ministry, where we buy a whole bunch of reusable bags and we give them to members of the congregation. And we say, when you're shopping, fill this bag with stuff that can make food for families, and we literally give them to families that need them. And so for me, that's a great accomplishment, because what it means is that we are not just, dealing with Jesus at arm's length. We are looking Jesus in the face and saying, I am caring for the least of these. And so for me, that was a really important accomplishment in my congregation, because we went from simply just writing checks and throwing money at things to actually looking in people's faces and engaging with them.
And then last but not least, what are your thoughts about the Episcopal Church as the Episcopal branch of the Jesus movement? How have you embraced this new understanding of evangelism? Are you familiar with the Reclaiming Jesus statement, and do you think it has a place in our diocese?
Well, I think Reclaiming Jesus has a place in every diocese. I really do think that Christianity has a PR problem. Barnabas, back in 2017, did a survey of millennials, and they asked the question, when you hear the word Christian, what's the first thing that comes to mind? The number one answer was judgmental. The number two answer was homophobic. There were 52 categories that came out of that survey. Love never made the list. So, Christianity has a PR problem. So whether we like it or not, we get painted with the same brush. And so I really do think that we are called, you and I are called, to reclaim Jesus. And I think that that's what our presiding bishop is encouraging us to do. To go out there and do that thing called evangelism. The thing is, I think most of us think that evangelism is something like this. Have you found Jesus? Have you made him your personal Lord and Savior? Now, thank you. How many people have ever been converted by something like that? None. But here's something that we do that's evangelism, and we do it all the time, but we don't call it evangelism. When you find a really good restaurant, you know where I'm going with this, or a really good bottle of wine, what do? You go tell them. You yelled it. You post it on Instagram and Facebook, and then you go tell somebody. You go tell people about the good restaurant that you found, right? That's evangelism. That's what the presiding bishop is calling us to do in this Jesus movement. I found myself, as the priest of the parish, that my friends would ask me how was my weekend, and I would tell them everything I did in the weekend except for church. I'm the priest. And then I said, wait, what am I doing? And so when I started saying, my choir sang a really great anthem that I just absolutely loved, my friends started inviting themselves to church because they were like, maybe I can come hear your choir. What I think the presiding bishop is asking us to do is to go tell our story. Tell those stories of when you were sick and members of the parish called up to make sure you were okay. Tell those stories that when your mom died or your cousin died, that your parish brought you food and took care of you. Just tell the stories of what Jesus is doing in your life, and people are going to want to be a part of that. As one of my good friends says, you can't look to the clergy and the bishop to be the ones who grow the church. Shepherds don't grow sheep, sheep grow sheep. So if we're called to be God's sheep, the sheep need to go multiply and make more sheep. The shepherd doesn't. So the thing is to go out there and just tell the stories of where God has been active in our lives.
How are we doing on time? Okay, we have time for one question, and I will repeat it.
You are the designated questioner.
conference, and were you to be our bishop, you would be a stumbling stone for some people. And I'm sure you and your husband have had some conversations about this. And if you were able to share with us some of your current thinking, that would be great.
Okay, so the question is about Lambeth Conference. And in Lambeth, right, so that's coming up next year. Is it? No.
2020.
Yes, 2020.
Yes, July.
And so, if he were to become our bishop, there's a kerfuffle about inviting spouses of gay bishops. And so, Carol would like to know your thoughts about that whole issue.
Two. Part of, when I was growing up, part of the advice that my grandmother gave, and I mentioned this at the last Walkabout, was to get up, dress up, and show up. And so I think that even if my spouse could not go to Lambeth, I would still show up. Because there are no black gay bishops. So literally, if I were elected and I had to go to Lambeth, those folks who have an issue with gay bishops now have a different issue because I look like a lot of the people who object to gay bishops. And so simply by being present, it means that we have to have the conversation. I have found that that's happened a lot of the times in my own ministry. Just simply being present and being authentically who I am. Maybe it challenges some people, but it means that they have to engage with me. And that I can't be an issue that is out there, that I am an embodied person, a beloved child of God, and that they would have to deal with me.